Here's Brody Brazil.
Baseball's winter meetings wrapped up earlier this week in Nashville, Tennessee. As you know, I was out there, and as I've been saying all along, it always amazes me what a true melting pot it is of so many different types of people that work in professional baseball. You've got major league front office people, you've got minor league executives, you've got trainers, you've got community representatives, you've got media, you've got coaches and managers and so on and so on. You've also got player agents, and specifically the very high-profile and high-powered Scott Boras. That name should not be too unfamiliar to you. He's represented a lot of A's players over the years, but he has a very top-tier client list of Major League Baseball players that he represents. He also made some very straightforward and very strong comments against Major League Baseball and what they're doing in allowing the A's to relocate to Las Vegas. Now, typically, it seems like he does a end of the meetings type interview session, but he did this specific chat with John Shea of the San Francisco Chronicle, who, John, by the way, friend of the channel, has been doing an excellent job at chronicling these later stages of the A's potential relocation to Las Vegas. No, in all seriousness, it's important to document what's going on here for both history's sake, but also here in real time as things play out. There's still a lot of questions. I give John a lot of credit for talking to Scott, opening up this angle and having this conversation and getting what really is some strong feelings on the record. John's point here of his piece is that Major League Baseball and its owners, a couple weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, unanimously approved the A's relocation to Las Vegas. 30-0. Right? But then John makes this counterpoint early on in his piece saying, quote, "The industry is far from being in lockstep with the relocation process." Right? Like the owners decided one thing. Certainly Oakland fans don't feel that way. We know at least one player, maybe a lot more players don't feel that way. Who knows what the media thinks from a local or really national perspective, but John is just saying the industry, and some, like Scott Boras in the industry, are far from being in lockstep with that 30-0 unanimous approval. Here are some quotes from Scott Boras in this piece, which I will link to down below. Highly recommend you check the entire thing out. From Scott Boras, quote, "Remember, the commissioner's office on down. Every owner approved this. This is what Major League Baseball is doing to one of its franchises. We've made one of the great Major League franchises an outlier. I'm not sure why they did it this way. I don't understand it. I think it hurts the game." He goes on in a different quote to say, quote, "Sports are personal. I think John Fisher is taking a direction in this that is one where he's put his personal tone on this. The reflection of that and the marketplaces, you have players not knowing who their fans are. They're not certain where they're going to be at any time. And it's really not good for baseball players. It's not in any way customary to any other franchise. My hope is he considers that in his thoughts and concurs." Now, I mentioned Scott Boras. He has represented A's players over the years. We'll get to that in a second. He currently represents, star pitcher Paul Blackburn of Oakland, the recent All-Star. Zach Geloff, the up-and-coming next star of the Oakland Athletics. What a hitter, Zach Geloff, second half of last year. He's going to be big. Shea Langoliers, very established catcher who the A's traded for and have definite high hopes for, and J.J. Bleday, who they recently traded for about a year ago this time, last offseason from the Marlins. So interesting that Boras has like a significant amount of Oakland A's players, and he's had other ones before. These are just a list of 4 that I racked off the brain. Matt Chapman, maybe among the most prominent. Oh yeah, Kyler Murray before he chose football. Sean Manaea back in the day, and Shintaro Fujinami, who was signed last winter, didn't even make it through the entire last season. But Scott Boras has had a relationship with the A's franchise in terms of getting some of his players to go play there. He's also a Sacramento product Born in Sacramento, grew up in Elk Grove, or vice versa. But he's from the region, has fond thoughts of the Oakland A's and San Francisco Giants. Scott Boras also, I talk about being a power agent, represents the likes of Bryce Harper, Juan Soto, Corey Seager, Garrett Cole, Max Scherzer, Xander Bogaerts, and Jose Altuve. He's got a huge client list. He's influential in how he can shape baseball, quite honestly, where he gets his guys to go. And yeah, sure, is it usually about the dollar amount? Am I saying here that Scott Boras is going to put a ban on sending his players to Oakland? No, because if they offer the right deal, of course, he's going to send them there. Forbes.com said in 2022 that Boras had about $3.83 billion in player contracts under his and his team's management, which could yield up to about $191 million just last year alone in commissions. We don't know that number, but we're basing it on about a 5% maximum fee that baseball agents can charge their players. So look, one of the bigger fish out there in the agent game has some very strong opinions and feels about the A's relocating to Las Vegas. I wanted to set that tone before I continue here. Quote, for the players that I have there in Oakland, I think it's very, very difficult to look at competitiveness, to look at a career with a franchise, to look at what commitment means day in and day out to playing ball. All those things are so different than what we know of the other 29 teams. The situation, right, of his players in Oakland, maybe their marketability. Clearly, they're playing Major League Baseball. They have 162 games, and the bases are still 90 feet apart, and the pitcher's mound is still 60 feet 6 inches away. But he's saying that his players, to quote him right here, feel like they have it a lot different based on what's known, but more importantly, what's unknown. This is Major League Baseball. It's just so hard. I'm a Bay Area guy, and you see a team that is a nomad for 3 years. They don't even know where they're going. And you know what? As much as we all speculate about where the A's would play in a temporary home situation from 2025 through 26 and to 27, and hopefully not much longer than that, I don't know if he's saying that literally or figuratively, but maybe he knows on the inside that there is not a plan still here in late December for where the A's would be going for 2025. And look, that's been a conversation of free agents that are unwilling to sign with Oakland for more than 1 year or at all at this point. They want a multi-year deal, but they don't want to not know where they'll be in 2025. And I think as part of his response here, this was to a question to Boras about, well, you're a Sacramento guy, and what if the A's temporarily land in Sacramento in one way, shape, or form for those 3 years? Clearly, he is not really into it. And so again, is this going to stop Scott Boras from sending players to the A's? No, but I just don't think you want a power player type agent. Power player agent. You don't want that type of person out there having these sentiments about your team and franchise and Las Vegas, and it doesn't make sense and he doesn't like it. This would be a huge disadvantage if you really are going to be the Las Vegas A's and you really are going to be a team that goes out and procures the highest talent, like you really want to put on a show on 9 acres of the Tropicana hotel site on the Strip, then you're going to need some power player type players. And you need to work with a power agent to do that. And if that's his sentiment, I don't know about any other agent that spoke, but maybe some feel completely different. Maybe some or most feel identical to how Scott Boras does. So probably not good to not have Scott Boras at least looking at you the same as everybody else. You made it here to the end of the video. You know I appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe so I can definitely see you back here next time.